And we're back, everyone.
Yeah.
Welcome. Yeah. Welcome to Cranked and Ranked. Every once in a while, life happens and we have to take a little break. But we are back. And for those of you who count on us always being around, we do our best. But, sometimes you gotta have some me time. So we took a couple weeks off, but we're back. And trust me, we still have a fucking long ass list of artists to rank.
Yeah.
so
we got years in us left. We got plenty of time.
Yeah, and then at that point, other bands will be older with a bigger discography, and we'll be doing them. It's never going to end. I'm going to be on my deathbed, being like, "No, we didn't get to all the bands. I don't know why I have an accent now.
We're trapped here. This is it. This is our eternity.
This is it. We're trapped in a closet with R. Kelly." Yes, Cranked and Ranked is the name of this podcast. If you're new, where we rank rock and metal and other music related things, usually band discographies. And that's what we were doing today. We're back with a band discography, a one-parter and a fun one. Although I'm going to have to preface this by saying, I think out of all of the episodes we've ever done, every artist we've ever done, this one was the least musically satisfying of any artist we've ever done. Wow. I'm gonna say that because I'll get into it a little bit, but I didn't take away very much at all from doing this ranking. And the ranking we're going to be doing today, folks, if you haven't just read, is Twisted Sister.
What do you want to do with your podcast? I want to
rank. That's what I was. Man, that would have been great minds right there. Is what was happening. Speaking of great minds, before we go any further, I want to say happy birthday, Eddie Sparxx. You are now 24.
I'm in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
I'm very scared.
Don't be scared, because like I've said many times, I wasn't comfortable with myself to where I thought I was actually smart and knew what I was doing until I was 30. So if I could go back to it any time, I would never go back to my 20s. That was the worst time of my life. My 30s, things weren't as great, but as a person, I felt like I had gotten a lot better. Honestly, I think I'm the best person I've ever been right fucking now at 44.
Hell yeah.
So,
you are.
So anyway, yes, happy birthday, sir. And if anybody out there is like, oh, I didn't get Eddie anything, go buy some Cranked and Ranked merch for his birthday. You can go to oldhead.myspreadshop.com or old-head.myspreadshop.co.uk and buy some things.
Nice little tie-in there.
Yeah.
Nice little segue.
You know what? I'm all about using your birthday for my benefit if it's possible. But so yes, Twisted Sister is who we're going to be ranking today. And I said this on the end of the last episode. Mm-hmm. I, prior to this, had only heard one Twisted Sister album all the way through. If you're watching the video, it's behind me. Stay Hungry. I have that on vinyl. That's it. I'm pretty sure everybody that's into 80s hard rock owns Stay Hungry. I think it's just one of those albums. It's like if you're into 70s rock, you probably own, Dark Side of the Moon or something. It's like for 80s hard rock, I think Stay Hungry is one of those that you have to own. And so
it's just one of those.
Yeah. And so I've heard all of the albums, and I was surprised for some reason. I thought they had way more albums, but they only really have 5 proper albums.
Yeah.
6 that we're going to be ranking because we decided to also throw in their Christmas album that they did. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting ranking for me, just because, to preface this before I, go off on some of my critiques, we've already done, Poison, Motley Crue, Cinderella, Rat. I think that may have been all like the big 80s hairy type bands that we've done. But all of those bands are bands that like I love most of what they did.
Yeah.
And I came into Twisted Sister thinking, oh, I'm gonna really love this too. Probably it's in the same vein, the same time period, and that didn't really happen. But anyway, but as we normally do, we can talk about where we first came across Twisted Sister. And mine, I guarantee people that are my age. I was born in '78, so I was a young kid in the early '80s, and I remember the very first time I ever saw Dee Snider and Company. It was in a little movie called Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And my mom took me to the movie theater to see that. So what was that, 1984, 85? Something like that. So I wasn't very, I was 7 years old, something like that, maybe 8. But I just remember being like, who the hell are these guys? Like, they just looked fucked up. like I'm just like, what is going on with the hair and the clothes is insane. And so and of course soon after that I started paying more attention to MTV, and then you start seeing the videos for I Wanna Rock and We're Not Gonna Take It, and really that's it. I don't remember seeing any other Twisted Sister videos, but and then yeah, they were a band that like I never really like jumped on board. I bought Stay Hungry because I found it for pretty cheap, and it's one of those albums that there's 2 albums where I'm not really big on the bands, but they're albums that are important for a time period that I love, and that's Stay Hungry and Mental Health by Quiet Riot.
Yep.
Those are both albums that they're so responsible for, like, sure, the 80s hair thing was booming, but I feel like those 2 albums were 2 that just went boom, and the fucking thing went massive.
Yeah.
And so they're very important albums if you are really fascinated by that time period of music, which I am, and Eddie is as well.
Very much so.
But when did you first hear Twisted Sister?
Twisted Sister for me is a combination of things, and I think this leads me to having the feelings towards Twisted Sister that I do. I love them, and I consider them to be the ultimate 80s movie vibe of like any, I mean, they're mentioned in 80s movies, they appear in 80s movies, their music videos are like mini 80s movies,
Yeah. So, and very, very recently, Dee Snider appeared in a season of Cobra Kai. Like, yeah, they go to see a Dee Snider concert, I guess. Wow. And that's how much he is tied to that 80s vibe is that he even was in that. And I was all like, oh shit, Dee Snider. Yeah. But I also unapologetically love that show. So,
totally.
And it's got some cool music in it too.
Definitely. As well, like, I remember the first time I heard them was, or heard a version of them. I don't know if it is Twisted Sister out of memory, or if it's a cover. I mean, obviously it's a re-recording. I'm rambling here. You know the SpongeBob movie?
I'm a goofy goober.
Rock. I'm showing my age here because I remember I heard I Wanna Rock after I'm a Goofy Goober.
Yeah.
Rock.
That's so great because so I think I've said this before. Like I can't stand most children's programming, but SpongeBob was the show that me and my daughter really bonded on, because I laughed, I think, more than she did at SpongeBob as a 30-plus-year-old man. And we went to go see the SpongeBob movies in the theater and stuff like that. And we had the soundtrack, and so we would constantly play "I'm a Goofy Goober." Rock. Rock. It's I love that. That's such a great ending to that movie. Like, how more fucking ridiculous can you get than the end of that movie? It's so good. More children's programming should be like that.
Exactly. And also, this is another GTA band because I Wanna Rock is in GTA Vice City,
Uh-huh.
and I think We're Not Gonna Take It might be in Vice City Stories. Not 100% sure,
Mhm.
but We're Not Gonna Take It was also on Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock. So
Okay.
I got bombarded with Twisted Sister in
Yeah.
multiple facets of my life to the point where I should probably check these guys out. I like these songs. And you know what? I've listened to their stuff, and it's not the most technically amazing shred playing of the 80s, but
No. If it, for the podcast world, I was shaking my head very
yeah.
sternly, like, no, it's not.
But here's the thing: they had on their side like more. They're much more of a shouty, hooky, sing-along
Yeah,
band than they are a technical proficiency band.
sure.
Straight out of the gate, I think as well. The first time I heard the name Twisted Sister, I think was in that scene in Flight of the Navigator. You know that movie.
I
Uh,
haven't seen that since I was a kid, but I know what you're talking about.
you know how whatever character Sarah Jessica Parker's playing, she's got like a purple streak in her hair, and she said, "Oh, me and the girls are gonna go see Twisted Sister tonight." And the kid says, "I've never heard of her," and she goes, "It's a him. Actually, it's a they." It just stuck with me. It's like, wow, the 80s were really weird. I like it. So
Do you this is a tangent already.
cool.
Does it ever make you feel weird when people in movies and television shows mention bands that you love? Does it ever feel weird to you?
I just get like I just do a little bit of a head nod at the TV, like I like them too. Like
It always just feels awkward to me when
oh,
they mention bands.
a really good example of that is my mum called me into the living room one time because she was watching Murder She Wrote. She's like a massive fan of like 80s detective shows.
Yeah.
And she called me into the room. She said, "Will, holy shit," or "Eddie." I just doxed myself. "Eddie, come into the room, come into the living room." And no word of a lie. What's her name?
Angela
uh
Lansbury?
Angela Lansbury says like, yes, they sound a lot like Metallica or like whatever like band they were talking about. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I like
Yeah.
that, you know?
But I don't know why it always feels so awkward because I almost want to be like, you don't need to mention, just make up a fake band name. Don't mention my bands in your shit. Even if it's something that I love, I'm all like, why? Why do you have to mention it? But that's only when it's like just regular ass shit. Like if it's a sitcom that's all about like family stuff 98% of the time, and then there's one episode where somebody says Metallica, I go, no, don't talk about Metallica in this. I don't know why. I have no idea why. The things that make me feel awkward are bizarre for the most part. But
That's funny.
I
I've
yeah.
I've kind of always thought of it as like I suppose it's different if a band actually makes a cameo in the show, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Anthrax appearing on Married with Children.
I'm totally fine with that. That's handling it a bit differently.
Yeah, but I can see in a way how it's kind of like this was a clear attempt to grab a younger audience at
Yeah.
times. But when it's done like I'm a Goofy Goober rock, like
Oh yeah. No, that's great. That's
that
great.
transcends generational boundaries right there.
Yeah.
That binds us. It penetrates us, sometimes consensually. So yeah, with that,
Yes, let's rank. We got 6 albums to rank, 6 full-length studio albums by Twisted Sister. So I would be surprised if our number sixes were not the same thing, but I guess we'll find out. So, what is your number 6 Twisted Sister album?
My number 6 is Stay Hungry. It's not. It's not.
That would be a really odd beginning to this episode.
Nah,
It's an overrated album.
yeah, it's a twisted Christmas. Like that. Here we go. Like
Yeah.
we've talked about Christmas albums here in the past with the Billy Idol episode. And to me, it's one of those albums that should be cringe, and at
Mhm.
times it can be,
Yeah.
but it also strikes me as self-aware enough to get away with it. So it's like, it's Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
They're not doing it in a, I mean, they even start the album with a psych out where they're doing like an acoustic, um what's the first fucking track? I don't know, but
I think it's "O
they,
Come All Ye Faithful"
yeah. I mean, and that
or
was a
something like
big
that.
dick. It was a
No,
big
that's
dick and
not
a
it.
power move, in
Yeah.
my opinion, to mash up "O Come All Ye Faithful" with "We're Not Gonna Take It." I think that was a clever thing to do,
Oh, that's later
but
on in the album. So you're wrong. You're right. You're right. It's a different song. I don't remember. But anyway, I put this album out of my mind already.
yeah, oh yeah, it's "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas,"
There you
and
go.
like they start off and they do about like 40 seconds of it, and then they're like, whoa, 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 what the hell are we doing here? What the fuck? And then they start doing it like electric
So,
rather
so
than,
that honestly, that because this is also my number six. We'll just have an open conversation about this album because,
yeah, let's do it.
but that's what I'm trying to say. So I'll say this a lot about Twisted Sister, that just listening to the music, the majority of the music that they made, I would say 80% of the music they made sounds like it was made like what's the word I'm looking for? Like there was a paint by numbers of how to do hard rock music, and there's no coloring outside of the lines. It's just making the hard rock picture exactly as the numbers tell you to make it, but don't really do anything outside of any of that because that would be kind of weird. And so they begin this thing, and the guy goes, "This ain't Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
This is Twisted Sister." And then they go into playing like the most blandest thing. They literally go from playing something that's like bland and soft to bland and loud. And I'm like, oh, that's Twisted Sister. That's oh, that is. And yes, it is, folks. It is blandness. I mean, honestly, that is the one thing I have to say. After 20 years, the band is back together. They haven't done anything together in 20 years, and they decide to do a Christmas album like that. More power to Dee Snider. He seems like a great guy, and I'm sure the other guys in the band, although isn't the drummer passed away, didn't he?
AJ Pero is no longer with us.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. And I'm sure he was great too. And I'm sure, and I understand that this band has a lot of fans. I don't quite understand why there are really big fans of this band, but it's just something about like coming back 20 years later, and then it's not even really trying very hard in this. It's very phoned in. Like they had a weekend and they just got together and threw this together. And, the real question is this Christmas album better or worse than Billy Idol's Christmas album?
I don't know what it is. I think Billy Idol, he had that kind of crossover appeal where he could kind of get away with anything. He could do a hair metal song and get away with it. He could do a new wave song and get away with it. I think Twisted Sister, they're kind of tied to an image, whereas Billy Idol, while he did have like a bad boy rocker kind of image, he didn't really conform to any one genre.
Yeah.
He kind of jumped around. So in a way, he gets more of a pass, I guess, than Twisted Sister would. I mean, I feel like this could be a fun yearly thing to stick on and have a good laugh and a drink with. But
Yeah.
and I don't think it's meant to be taken any deeper than that. I
don't think it is, but it has given me a greater appreciation for Billy Idol's Christmas album because I like the fact that he didn't just do this basic bitch rock music stuff. He just did the songs normally with Billy Idol singing them, which is also a little bit disappointing, but lesser. It's the lessers of the disappointingness. I'm sorry, you were probably going to do a track by track, and I just like jumped in like, I got something to say.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I didn't do a track by track for this one, but I did want to say 12 silver crosses, 11 black mascaras, 10 pairs of platforms, 9 tattered t-shirts, 8 pentagrams, 7 leather jackets, 6 cans of hairspray, 5 skull earrings, 4 quarts of drac, 3 studded belts, 2 pairs of spandex pants, and a tattoo of Ozzy.
That's the caliber of entertainment you're gonna get on this album, folks. I will give it one thing. I'll Be Home for Christmas has Lita Ford on it. So I enjoyed at least that portion of that song, which brings me to my question. When the fuck are we going to rank Lita Ford? Because that
We're
is
do that.
That's yeah.
Swing.
She'd give a dog a bone.
If she were president, she'd be Abraham Lincoln.
Why does that still make me laugh? And I've heard that like a million times.
It's the best one.
Anyway, yeah, I think I don't like this. And honestly, just going through the Twisted Sister catalog, once I realized that 20 years later, this is what they came out with, I go, it kind of makes sense. And also, it is important to note that like they chose all these different Christmas songs, and none of them were on our Cranked and Ranked Christmas playlist. They chose a whole bunch of real basic Christmas songs. They could have done. Why couldn't they do Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time or Merry Christmas? What is that one by the British
Slade.
Group? Slade.
Yeah,
that would have been great. That would have been great.
That was practically made for. That was right there.
Like, exactly, because they cover Slade already.
Maybe
isn't we're not going to take it a Slade? No. I'm thinking of Come On, Feel the Noise. That's a Slade song. That's Quiet Riot. That is not what we're talking about today. Anyway, no, that's true. They didn't do that. Their hit song wasn't a cover. They tried to make a hit song out of a cover, which we'll get to, and it did not work. But anyways, yes, to Twisted Christmas, and also the way that it ends. This is how lazy they were doing it. So the album wraps up, and it's a whole crowd full of people singing "We wish you a twisted Christmas," and they do it over and over again. And then they get to the last one. "We wish you a twisted Christmas," and I'm like, oh, what kind of New Year is it going to be? And a twisted New Year. I'm like, oh god damn it! They couldn't even do a different word. It's like, just use some imagination. It's just so like, this is good enough. Print it, get it out. It'll make some money for the first time, and then we'll cash our checks and we'll go back to our lives. All right.
I feel kind of mean right now because I've been listening to like so much Twisted Sister these past 2 weeks and having a good time watching their music videos. And so far I've got about like 27 minutes on the clock, and we've just been so critical of the Christmas album so far.
I'm going to be critical about a lot of their albums. I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. But but having a good time listening to them, that makes, I understand that. I absolutely understand that. So let's go. Let's move on. So maybe we can get to something slightly more positive here with your number 5 Twisted Sister album.
So the following 5 are all from a place of love. That my top 5 Twisted Sister albums are all albums that I enjoy very much so, and depending on what kind of day it is. In terms of how much, like the frequency of how much I'm gonna play these records is the way I've structured my list. So without further ado, my number 5 is, and this could be a controversial take, but my number 5 is Under the Blade.
Okay, that's the debut, right?
It is the debut, and there is a certain, like, the songs are really catchy, but I feel like the production isn't quite there yet, and also there's still a confidence like they have to prove themselves that they wouldn't have until the next album. So
are you referring to the original mix of the album or the re-released mix from the 80s, later in the 80s?
I think I'm talking about the re-released one because it's got Shoot 'Em Down on it.
Both of them sound bad, but the remix is less bad. Also, I always think it's interesting to me that there's 2 different album covers also. Yeah. And one of them, the band looks real, just like, we're coming to get you. And then the second one, Dee Snider almost looks like he's going,
Yeah, come
He's
on.
like, I don't know why I'm here. This is my band, I guess.
Yeah.
He has a really like confused and I don't know what kind of look it is, but I'm like, that's the picture they chose. That's really
We
weird.
remixed it. Give it another go.
Come on, guys, give us a break.
But yeah, like with that, I'm gonna dive in. So, what you don't know sure can hurt you. Sure can hurt you. It's a great opener. It's a good show opener. To be fair,
Considering it doesn't start with "Welcome to our show," isn't that the way it starts? It's like that's a very. It's important to note though, like because I have seen the Twisted Sister documentary, and I do know from watching that they were plugging away at clubs for years before they ever did this album. So they put in their time. I'm gonna give them that, but yeah.
But then, following following that one right up, you get "Bad Boys of Rock and Roll" making it the second bracket song in a row.
Yeah.
Really catchy song. You can tell that they've taken a big note from the UK glam bands of the 70s, where it's like, we got to have a chorus. It's got to be major key, and it's got to get a pub singing along, basically.
Yeah.
Then you get "Run for Your Life." Love the descending chromatics. Run for your life. Love that. Sin After Sin. Those manly gang vocals are pretty cool. Like,
you want to know what's weird about that song?
What's that?
I was listening to that song and I started thinking to myself, is this a Judas Priest cover? Because I'm all like, because it sounds kind of like a Judas Priest song from the 80s. And I was like, they had an album called Sin After Sin, but that was in the 70s. So I had to go look it up and be like, is this a Judas? No, nope. It's a Twisted Sister original.
It's funny because like early Twisted Sister, especially, they had this like weird thing where they would do a song that could have been by Slade, and then they'd do a song that you would expect from like Michael Schenker, and it's like they got this cool thing happening here, and you can kind of see how they're beloved in the kind of glam thing, even if they are very straightforward musically.
Yeah.
Shoot 'Em Down, which I believe was introduced on the re-release, is an absolute tune. Destroyer is a slow plodding track, a bit slower and more plodding than it probably needed to be. Under the Blade kicks ass. Tear It Loose is a cool song. I'll Never Grow Up Now is an absolute party of a song. And Day of the Rocker is a cool closer. Really, this album is one of those where I'm like, if I'm in an early 80s mood, I'll stick it on and I'll have a good time. But they're one of the more switch your brain off and have a beer kind of 80s hard rock bands, rather than check out this guitar player and have your face melted off kind of. Yeah. So yeah, with that's my number 5.
Awesome.
My
number 5 is their fourth album, Come Out and Play, from 1985.
Which was almost my number 5 until I changed my mind.
Hey. So when I did this chronologically. I started with Under the Blade and then moved all the way through listening to their albums. And once I got to this one, because I really enjoy Stay Hungry. Stay Hungry is a classic album for a reason. And then this is the follow-up to it. And this is really like, it's like the songs are weaker, and it's almost like they ran out of steam, like didn't know kind of where to go from there. And so they do things like, oh, we're going to do a cover song. We'll cover Leader of the Pack, which is really bad. And and it really shows that, like, at that point, I think what Twisted Sister had to offer was really limited, and it had already worn very thin. I think at this point, even like, that's the weirdest thing to think about. This is how disappointing this album was. They went from having an album that was like massively successful, and then the very next album, everyone went, nah. like even audiences were just kind of like, yeah, we're kind of done with your makeup and hair stuff. But yeah, it's just a bunch of same old. And some of it's enjoyable. Like there's like all of their albums from this point on, 5 through 1, there are parts and songs where I enjoyed myself. Um, but at this point, with in Come Out and Play, it's almost like the sound of a band treading water in a very shallow pool, and so there's not really a lot more to offer. Now, I think I'll probably get this out of the way right now because I gotta like talk about the number one thing that made it really hard for me to get into their stuff. It is some of the stiffest soulless guitar playing I've ever fucking heard. Like it sounds, I'm assuming everybody knows how to play the guitars really well, but they play it like if I was recording an album and I'd been playing guitar for like a year and I'm real tight with everything, I'm just like like there's no latitude or whatever. It's just it's so fucking stiff on all of their albums that this is going to be controversial. It makes CC DeVille sound like an awesome guitar player. So,
oh shit!
Because I'm just like, at least there's some like vibe and like some looseness going on, but almost every Twisted Sister album, I keep listening, going, why are you playing that way? Like, why does it have to be so choppy? Like it's just so, that's the best way I can explain it, is that it's stiff. It's like, I have no idea. Almost like these days, if you were going to program this guitar riff, and it was like, that's what it sounds like. It's soulless is the best way I can say. There's not a lot going on there for me. So I'm going to get that out of the way because they do that a lot. And that really bums me out on every album. Some albums less so. But it's just one of those things where I don't get it. I don't understand why this band has like massive fans. Like I understand liking this band and enjoying their music, but I think that there are people out there who are really big fans. Like this band is one of the best things ever.
And SMFs.
The SMFs. Now, I guess I would understand like if you were there back in the day and this is a band that you would like ridden along with them and it's like very personal to you. I get that. But when it comes to this style of music where it's supposed to be just like turn your brain off, have a beer, have fun, sing along, there are like 10 other bands I can name that did it way better than Twisted Sister. And so this has been a really fascinating ride for me, listening to the Twisted Sister discography. And Come Out and Play is an album where it's very just sort of, here's an album. And the good parts are lesser than they are on albums to come. So on that note, let's move on to our number 4 Twisted Sister album.
Cool. So my number 4 is Come Out and Play. And the big thing that kept this album above Under the Blade for me is that sonically, this is probably my favorite sounding of all their records.
Okay.
In terms of production, there's just a real big 80s hair vibe here.
Sure.
And it's not like mega clinical, and it's got like, maybe apart from the guitar playing, I do agree to an extent. But they really nailed like the right amount of reverb to have on the drums and the right amount of delay to have on the vocals, and that when this album shines, it has moments where I think this fucking rules, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
But I do understand the weaknesses of this album compared to the top 3. So Come Out and Play is a speedy metal track and is a pretty killer opener. And I particularly liked the little Warriors reference at the beginning.
Yeah.
Twisted Sister, come out to play. Fucking love that movie.
Which that's a cool reference in '85 because that movie wasn't that old at that point.
Yeah, it does amaze me now when you look back at certain things from the '80s, and they're like, people will make references to movies that are like 2 years old, and like anything since then needs at least 20 years to get a cult following.
Yeah.
Whereas like back in the day, it was like, oh, everybody's seen that and it rules, or everybody's heard that and it rules, and everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
But immediately you follow it up with Leader of the Pack, which, you know, is a Shangri-La's cover, and the thing people tend to cringe about this album the most when this album comes up. It's one of those moments that I won't skip, but it's pretty hard to defend.
Yeah.
I think like the video makes it more bearable, especially that part where they're all peeing against the road and they all turn around and go Leader of the Pack, and it's kind of funny. But
Yeah.
You Want What We Got is a stomping party rocker. I believe in rock and roll. Like that was one of the ones that got me like, yeah,
I do believe.
And then immediately following that up with The Fire Still Burns. I fucking love this song. Like it's that big epic chorus. I don't care if the chorus is one line repeated when it sounds that big.
Yeah.
Like the fire still burns. That's like, that speaks to me on an 80s metal level. And then Be Cruel to Your School, spelt BCHROOL to your SCUEL. Star Speller, year 5. Don't forget.
What? That is bizarre. Why did they do that?
Have you not seen that? Oh, it's just
I've seen it, but I didn't really pay attention to the exact spelling of it.
Spelling errors are cool.
That song was actually in a movie I watched a lot as a kid called One Crazy Summer with John Cusack, and it's weird. It's almost like a cousin to the movie Better Off Dead. You ever see Better Off Dead with John Cusack, where he breaks up with the girl and he's like he's like training to be a skier, a snow skier kind of guy. Okay, anyway, that's a great 80s movie. And then I think it's the same writer director that did One Crazy Summer, where it's just kind of irreverent, kind of 80s comedy. Not as good as Better Off Dead, if I remember right, but it's got Bobcat Goldthwait in it. And back when he was still doing the all the time. Yeah. But I just remember that song is in that movie.
Yeah, and that you've seen the music video for this song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in that too.
He is. You're right. Yeah. Okay.
It ties in, but I will say I do love the music video to this. And see, this is the thing, right? The spirit of Twisted Sister on this album, I feel, is in this song that they did with Alice Cooper. Because I just thought, do you know what? Visually and song-wise, this stacks up with the likes of I Wanna Rock and We're Not Gonna Take It in terms of enjoyability. Had this been the lead-off kind of thing in contrast to the cover of Leader of the Pack, it might have been a bit better received, but
Yeah.
Then you get I Believe in You is a big old ballad. Out on the Streets is like a lean, mean 80s track. Looking Out for Number One, I quite like that song. Kill or Be Killed is one of their speedier tracks. King of the Fools is just a big old epic ballad to close out on. I get the same vibe from this record that I do from Theater of Pain, and that is immediately following up a classic with something of a bomb.
Yeah.
Right afterwards, and they did. The difference being, Motley would follow up with Girls, Girls, Girls and Dr. Feelgood, whereas Twisted Sister would disband one album later, which is unfortunate. But for me, this album, production-wise, is my favorite sounding of their albums, but the strength of the songs has taken a real hit compared to the previous one.
Yeah, you're right. Cool. Well, I mean, the interesting thing now is that with my number 4, it's going to solidify that we have the same top 3, because my number 4 is Under the Blade from 1982. Going from what you said is their best sounding album to what is arguably their worst sounding album.
Yeah.
The 82 version or the 85 remix. 1985 was the remix version. This album has a good energy to it, but straight out of the gate when I was listening to this, because this is an album that a lot of people like to point to, like, oh, you listen to Under the Blade, some of the songs are almost like metal songs. And I'm like, that's really pushing it here. That's like saying, that's that same argument that people have for the hard rock music that Judas Priest made. And they're like, it's metal. I'm like, no, it's not. It's hard rock. But the thing that I couldn't get past a few songs into this is that it's very bland. Like, this is 1982. There was, I guess they're still at the beginning of it all, because 82, when did Too Fast for Love come out? Was it 81? Too Fast for Love?
A year before, yeah.
Too Fast for Love blows this fucking album out of the water. But yeah, it's really like the kind of thing that I said before. Other bands would end up doing this so much better than this. And my problem with a lot of Twisted Sister, and especially this album, is that the stuff where they try to be poppy is not catchy enough. The stuff where they try to be heavy, it's too light. And so it's this weird, it's very stiff. And the only thing that I could equate it to, this might be a cheap shot because the band had their image with how they dressed and looked and everything. But everything about this band, it feels like a freshly starched rock and roll costume that they just put on, and they're like, here's what the rockers do and sound like and look like, boom. And it's just it's like, if anyone was going to point to a band and say they seem manufactured, this is exactly what I would be pointing at. Like, it feels like they had just enough rock and roll knowledge to get them by, but that was as far as they were going to go. And so it blows my mind.
Like, they were one of the bands that, absolutely soldiered on through the whole of nearly all of the 70s, playing, bars and shit.
Yeah, but when I hear this album, you can hear why it took them so fucking long to get a record deal. I don't care how fun you are live, or how great of a singer your front man is, or how great of a front man because he is a great front man and a great singer, great voice, but there's just not a lot there in this. And this is coming at it from the angle where I didn't want to have to think too hard, but this almost didn't let me even get comfortable. It's just like, it's a bumpy ride the whole way through. And you said something about a song being plotting or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of these songs to me sound like they were songs that were supposed to be played on 45 RPM, but they're being played on 33. And I'm like, why is this so slow? And even when it's slow, the guitar player is still so stiff with everything they're playing.
Yeah, that one.
So to me, for an album that has all this like hype behind it from like people that are into Twisted Sister, or even people that aren't, will point to this album and go, that one, this is really underwhelming. Like, it's compared to the other things that were happening around this time, like, prior to this, Motley Crue, soon after this would be Rat, even Quiet Riot. Like, I don't know a whole lot of Quiet Riot, so we'll probably get to them and I'll be equally as cruel. But I just think that I think the biggest problem here is that my expectations were set high because of people who are into Twisted Sister. And so I expected this to be way more of a debut that was going to like go, damn, this band's good. But it's more like, I guess they get better, and they do. So my number 4 is Under the Blade. And that brings us to the top 3 Twisted Sister albums.
Okay, right. Oh.
Wow, that actually, you sounded like you'd been through the shit, man. You'd come out the other end of being in a rock and roll band for 40 years, and you're like, let me tell you a rock and roll story.
I don't know. I think I finally hit puberty at 24.
It's got to happen sometime. You finally got pubes.
I mean, you didn't tell him about my pubes, did you? Hold up, I gotta adjust the
Hold up.
adjust the lighting
Hey,
here.
smoke weed every day.
You beat me to it. I busted the fucking drawstring on this blind, so I gotta be super careful. Oh shit! It's okay. Gravity and I do not have a good relationship right now. Shit keeps falling over. That being said, let's get.
I'm not even gonna edit that out.
Don't.
It's just gonna be maybe the podcast will be edited out. But video wise, everyone's missed us. So we're gonna have all the time with us you can get.
Cool. So as a seasoned Twisted Sister fan, I'm gonna, preface this by perhaps I'm being a contrarian. Perhaps I've been in a certain mood this week that's affected my ordering of my top three. Nonetheless, this is my top three and the most likely albums I'm going to pull off the shelf.
Got it.
And with that, my number three is Stay Hungry.
Oh, all right.
And I know it seems odd, being as you've said yourself, Stay Hungry is the one everyone knows and the one everyone into hard rock in the 80s has.
Yeah.
But there's just something about the flavors of the upcoming two albums, so to speak, that just they got a little extra spice to them, in my opinion. One sways one way, the other sways another. But I feel like Stay Hungry is a happy medium of both. And so it has like the heaviness of their earlier stuff, but the hookiness of where they would end up going.
Yeah.
So with that, Stay Hungry. Stay Hungry, opening with the title track, good way to go.
So just coming off from what I was talking about, if Stay Hungry had been how their first album started, I would have been like, hell yeah, because that is a killer opening song. So it may really kick down the doors in this album.
Totally. Like right out of the gate, you get pretty much a speed metal song. Like this isn't really glam. It's like heavy metal going fast.
Yeah.
If you're a badassery, like great way to open. And then you follow it up with We're Not Gonna Take It, one of the big two Twisted Sister tracks.
Also, like one of the defining songs of the 1980s. Like and a song that like I don't think I would want to hang out with anybody that doesn't like that song. Like it's just such a great, fun, well-written poppy rock song that I don't know. It's pretty much for what it is. It's a perfect song to me.
And it's basically become a rallying cry for literally every political party ever at this
stage. although Dee Snider doesn't want it to have anything to do with nutty right wingers, which in this day and age is. I
mean, it's quite literally about that. Like, it's. I still think we need to bring up the famous court case appearance of Dee Snider while we're at it, because if there is a culturally significant thing that Twisted Sister managed to pull off, that was embarrassing Congress dressed in a denim vest and a massive fucking poodle perm. Yeah, like for Dee to walk in there and like psych him out, thinking, oh, he's just some idiot rocker, and then absolutely annihilate the PMRC with all of the stuff he had prepared.
So for younger folks that may not know about this, the PMRC was the Parents Music Resource Center, right? Which was run, or I think even started by Tipper Gore, who is Al Gore's wife. And they were the ones responsible for, you started to see parental advisory stickers on albums. And
which did nothing but help album sales.
I know. It's become like an iconic image. Like, hey, I want that on my album. And so they were all about like censoring music.
Yeah.
And then there was a big court case. I don't remember exactly how it came about, but I know that it was Dee Snider was involved and Frank Zappa. I think fucking John Denver also.
Yeah.
Like that's how everyone was rallying together. It was these different styles of music, and they were all just like, why are you trying to censor this shit? It's just, I mean, this nowadays it seems dumb because like music is so readily available to anybody that if somebody had brought this today, we're gonna make sure that kids can't get to music. Everyone would be, bitch, how?
Yeah.
like how are we gonna do that? They don't got to go to a store anymore. All right, did we not already talk about wet ass pussy? Like that's already out there. All right.
I was gonna say, I can see tits in like 3 clicks. You think I'm not gonna get to an Eminem song? Like,
yeah, it's pretty dumb. And also there was was it the Filthy 15?
Yeah,
like a list of songs that they thought were really bad, and only some of them were actually bad. I think they like, especially by today's standards, you look at the songs and you're like, some of these are like, I would play that for my daughter when she was like 5. Like, what is this supposed to be?
I'm gonna look it up right now. What were the Filthy 15? Okay, you've got Darling Nikki by Prince, Sheena Easton, Sugar Walls, Judas
Okay, so
Priest,
both
Eat
of
Me
those have
Alive,
sexual things in them. So yeah.
Vanity, Strap On Robbie Baby,
Yeah.
Motley Crue, Bastard, AC/DC, Let Me Put My Love Into You, Twisted Sister, We're Not Gonna Take It, Madonna.
Why is that? Why is We're Not Gonna Take It on that list? There's literally nothing dirty about that song.
Tipper Gore thought it was about bondage, so I mean that speaks to her dirty mind.
She thought We're Not Gonna Take It was about bondage?
No, it was Under the Blade. She thought it was about bondage, even though it was about one of the band members undergoing surgery.
Got it.
High and Dry by Def Leppard is on here. Trashed by Black Sabbath, like Possessed by Venom. She-Bop by Cyndi Lauper is on here. Fucking hell.
I owned that Cyndi Lauper album when I was like 6 or whatever, so it's
it's so funny when you think in like context of the music of today. Like they would have had like a straight up fucking seizure if they heard an Eminem song. Like if you put on The Real Slim Shady to Tipper Gore, she would have straight up tried to perform an exorcism. Like
but I like when things like that happen, because I like it when music communities come together with a common enemy. Yeah, because everything seems so fractured in so many ways that it's nice. And then you get really great songs like Hook and Mouth by Megadeth that come out of that. And so
it ended up a fish.
Yeah, I love that fucking song. And so it's funny because then years later, like another case that people should have rallied around and didn't was the Napster case, and they fucking left Lars there to take all of the fucking brunt of everything. And now everyone's like, Lars was right, but we just didn't want to be involved at the time. Okay.
They fucking left me to deal with it myself.
I love the fact that there are people that still use that as a complaint about Lars. Like, he was greedy and went against Napster. I'm like, what fucking year are you living in? It's already been proven that he was right. And what he was doing was important and had very little to do with him trying to get money. And so anyway, but that's on another tangent completely. It's just become one of those things. But I do like everyone banding together against Tipper Gore and the PMRC, because I'm just like, yeah, fuck that. I want to hear songs about sex and violence. That's what makes the world go around, isn't it?
Hell yeah, it does. With that,
burn in hell. Burn in hell.
I mean, they don't get enough credit for how much heavier they were than a lot of glam metal bands. I'll give them that, because like there were a lot of very glossy 80s bands. And when they bust out a track like Stay Hungry or Burn in Hell, it's like, this one though, this fucking rocks. And then you got Horror Terria, The Beginning, Captain Howdy. B, Street Justice. There's a big old story proggy concept on this one. Like, and I say proggy as in not musically, but just having two parts of a song. It's in song title only, basically.
For Twisted Sister, that's prog, right there.
Yeah. And then you get I Wanna Rock, which is the other one of the big two Twisted Sister tracks.
Yep.
One of two that had iconic music videos. The Price is a somber on the road ballad. Don't Let Me Down has a kind of Dokken feel in the chorus. I really like this song. The Beast is an intimidating track. We're metal and we're scary. And then SMF is just an ass-kicking closer.
Which stands for sick motherfucker.
Sick motherfucker. Yeah. You're an SMF. I am. And with that, that's my number 3.
You are.
Hell yeah.
That is not my number 3. My number 3 is You Can't Stop Rock and Roll from 1983. And it's their second album. First thing I will say about it is a big improvement over the debut. The songs have a little bit of a looser feel, and it makes for a more enjoyable experience overall. The songwriting improves. That's the one thing I got to say. From album 1, 2, and 3, the songwriting improves like
dramatically,
substantially on each of those albums. And it feels a little less stiff on this album, performance-wise, than on the last one. And I feel like Dee Snider got way better at writing vocal lines. They were a little bit more memorable, which also gets better with Stay Hungry. But there are still some pretty dull moments on this album, which keeps it at number 3 for me. Still some bland riffs. And it's still got, for the most part, while it is a little bit easier to take, the guitar work is still pretty stiff in this, but it does definitely have enjoyable moments on it. But to be honest, this is my number 3, but like I've said before, if I'm going for this type of rock music from the 80s, this is nowhere near a go-to. Like, it's just kind of, okay, this is fine. But yeah, it just doesn't have enough I don't know exactly how to flesh that out anymore. To be honest though, like that, getting that one is the next 2 albums are both albums that I legit think are good albums. Number 3, the You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, it's just kind of, it just feels so much like trying too hard just to let everybody know you're a rocker over and over again. It's like being in a conversation with like somebody who's had a child, and they begin every sentence with, as a mom, I think, so this is Twisted Sister, and every song is, as a rocker, here's what we do. And I'm like, I get it. You're a rocker. So yeah, it's fine. It's a fine album. But now let's move on to our top 2.
I want to know, and I'm delighted that this is the case, and I'm going to go against a lot of the kind of groupthink opinion, the groupthink opinion probably even applies to the members, because they weren't happy around this time, and I kind of get that.
Yeah.
But I can't help but really love Love Is for Suckers. Like, this album...
Is that your number 2?
Do we have the same number 2?
We do have the same number 2. Love Is for Suckers.
Let's jump in. Let's just
1987
open conversation here.
Yeah,
1987. The glossiest, most hair metal-y thing that they did.
Yeah.
I really fucking like it. Like,
it's
I think it's underappreciated.
So this, to me, I read that this was supposed to be a Dee Snider solo album at first.
Yes.
So whoever's decision it was to lean into the pop side of stuff, it lends itself to a much more enjoyable sound, because it also I don't know if it's the kind of songwriting they were going for, but this is vocally has to be the best D. Snyder sounds on any Twisted Sister album. Like
Yeah,
he sounds great on this. And I think it's
yeah.
because the songs allow for more of what he can do with his voice. And
Mm-hmm.
it does have that 80s anthemic soundtrack type of shit all the way through it, which is totally fun. So,
I'm currently looking at the personnel on this album, and I'm seeing a lot of names like Reb Beach,
oh,
Bo Hill. Damn, dude.
did Bo Hill produce it?
He did keyboards and backing vocals.
Oh, interesting.
Reb Beach did additional guitars and
Which Reb Beach
additional
was
shouts.
in no Winger? No, what
He
was
was
Reb?
he was in Winger, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
He's a member of the bands Winger and Whitesnake. Everyone's been in fucking Whitesnake.
I was in Whitesnake for a minute.
Oh, even fucking Kip Winger did backing vocals on this album, dude. Um, but I know there's a slightly different lineup here on this one because yeah, Joey Seven Franco does drums on this instead of AJ Pero.
Okay, got it. So not really a proper Twisted Sister album, but it does have the Twisted Sister name. So
Yeah. But I mean, with that, I mean, when I listen to this, I have a great time.
to me it really falls into, like, maybe what Def Leppard were doing around the time, like a
Mhm.
like a really big sounding pop metal album. And
Yeah.
I enjoy the fuck out of. That is more turn your brain off, have a beer type music for what they were doing than anything
Mhm.
else.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they leaned really hard into the poppy mentality on this one, and I think it worked really well. It's a shame that they didn't get along with that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think
disbanded.
they'd been going through so much shit because of the album before not doing very well. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and so I mean, clearly if D was intending on going on his own, things
Mm.
were already not well with all those guys. So
And I mean, with that, let's talk about the songs.
Mhm.
So we got "Wake Up," "The Sleeping Giant." That is a rallying call of a song. Great opener.
Yeah.
Great song to kick things off. "Hot Love." Here's the thing. Many would argue that this is exactly what was wrong with hair metal. I
No.
fucking love glossy,
Yeah.
cheesy, smile on your face hair metal, and this is exactly how to do it.
I agree, but also since you were looking at the personnel, is it different guitar players than the other Twisted Sister albums?
Eddie Ojeda is on here, and JJ French are on here, so it's the same guitarist.
Because this is the only album that the Twisted Sister album. I go, man, the guitars sound good on here. Like, what happened?
I would imagine that Reb Beach had a lot to do with that, it being additional guitars and stuff. Not to slag anyone off. Oh, Bo Hill was the producer on here. Okay. I mean,
okay.
When I look at the reviews of this album, I just think, do people have ears?
Well, it's really, especially for people that are quote unquote, as a rocker, I don't really like the poppy sound of yeah. So I'm sure at the time there were like rockers that were annoyed by this album, and then today you have those people that mistakenly think that Turbo is a bad album when it's not. And then so I think it's just one of those things. But you said like groupthink mentality, and it really is. I think it's not taking this album for what it is and how good it is for what it is kind of showing that you don't really know what you're talking about. And so and whether or not you enjoy it, that's a different story. If you're not into this big 80s rock sound at all, then great, move on to another party, because this one is we're going to be glossing up the place. But for this
and poodle perms
for
right
this
in
type
here.
for this type of stuff, like, this is really good for this particular style.
I mean, "Love Is for Suckers" is a banger. Great chorus on it. I'm So Hot for You, muscular kind of guitar riffs in there, gives me kind of a Rock of Ages, Def Leppard vibe, like as you said. Tonight is a very 80s metal song. Me and the Boys, major key hair metal is my jam. I fucking live for this stuff.
Mhm.
One Bad Habit. See, this is the thing, right? This album managed to cram every single hair metal cliche into less than 40 minutes, and I fucking love it. Like,
Yeah.
even down to having a horn section on this track. They had a list, and they ticked every box, but they did it well.
I mean,
I want this night to last forever. Like, it's just good vibe, 80s pool party stuff, man.
yeah.
What were you gonna say? Sorry,
I was going to say,
off.
I enjoyed this album so much. I immediately went to go look for copies of it on vinyl because I'm like, oh, I'd like to put this in my collection too. When I have those days where I just want some poppy 80s hard rock goodness, I'm like, this is a damn
Yeah.
good one to throw on.
Here's the thing as well. Like, you look at the cover art, it's literally a chick sucking on a lollipop. It's a sugary sweet album, and that's exactly how it's meant to be enjoyed. You Are All That I Need is a lovely ballad, ultra cheesy mid to late 80s ballad, and I'm gonna throw it out there. Metalheads that admit to liking power ballads, horsecock energy, dude. Straight up. We're an elite breed.
we are. Although I wouldn't consider myself a metalhead, but I do. I don't know what I consider myself.
You're a music head that likes metal.
I'm a heavy head. I like heavy music, because in some of it's metal, a lot of it's metal,
Nice.
really. But I'm uncomfortable with the metalhead terminology because a lot of people that call themselves metalheads are douchebags, and so I try to avoid that at all costs.
It's so funny. Back when I was in like college or uni and school, any kind of situation in a music lesson where I was like made to do a group task, it was always a case of the very first thing anyone would say to me, right? And it was usually girls that were singers. I don't want to sing metal. And it's like, did you think because I looked this way, I intended for you to scream?
Yeah.
And
they usually think that when you're into metal that it's all screaming.
Yeah. Yeah, people are immature, dude. Fucking hell.
Yes, yeah, fucking people
need to grow up, dude.
Most people are dicks. Like Ludacris once said very, very cleverly and appropriately.
Ludacris were right about everything.
They were.
Don't call me dude.
This party sucks. That'll be one. That should be the ranking. We'll do Ludacris / Scatterbrain together.
Yeah.
Which I think we've already mentioned that before. That's going to happen at some point.
Definitely. Yeah. To me overall. Oh, hang on. Yeah, right. Is a cool song. This album to me is a big step up from Come Out and Play because it decides to pick something and really go for it with confidence, whereas Come Out and Play was like, is there a way we can build off of what we did with Stay Hungry? And they kind of fell flat.
The answer is
no. Had they just have jumped to this, I mean, granted, it might have been a more jarring, like, holy fuck, they went real poppy real fast, but they might have lasted right through the 80s if they did that. I don't know. I don't know what.
To me, there's legit cool songs on this album. The 80s sounding part of it just makes it really enjoyable. But song wise, like there's just really good songs on here, and so that it doesn't to me sound like style over substance. It really does. That I really think that there are well written songs and well performed songs on this album. So that it is why it ended up at number 2, because I'm like, I can't deny the quality of the album, even if it's maybe not what the sick motherfuckers had in mind. When they put out another album.
But that's the thing. It isn't the raw heavy metal of their first couple of records, and it's very polished, but I like that about this era. I'm a
Yeah.
total slut for glossy hair metal. That's why Danger Danger's first album was in my top 5 albums of '89.
Dude, the Danger makes this sound like punk rock.
Yeah. And you know what? I love it.
Featuring Naughty Naughty and Bang Bang.
Nice. Number one.
Which brings us to our number ones, which our number ones are kind of close together, but not the same album.
Yeah. So my number one is your number 3, and that
Mhm.
is You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. And my reasoning for this is that the production is thicker, it's heavier, the songs
Mhm.
are stronger, they sound more comfortable on their instruments.
Mhm.
Everything kind of comes together. It is very meat and potatoes heavy metal, but I feel like it's done in such a fist pounding way that it doesn't need to. It wouldn't benefit from being technical, and it wouldn't benefit from being polished. This album to me is great the way it is. I mean, you open with The Kids Are Back, great stomping opener. Like, this whole album feels like the background music in a bar fight scene in an 80s movie
I
set in
think
like a rough town.
I think The Kids Are Back is one of the songs he plays in Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and with good reason.
Yeah.
Like a Knife in the Back is just more fist pounding kick assery. Ride to Live, Live to Ride is a Harley Davidson metal anthem, basically. Isn't there funny we talked about SpongeBob before, but isn't there an episode where there's a biker gang and they think that they've pissed off the wild ones because one of them tore a W off of the back, but it turns out to be an M, and they find out at the end it's just a bunch of like old people on bikes, and
I don't know if I remember that episode, but that sounds great.
Yeah, they spend the whole episode like trying to figure out how they can make it up to this dangerous biker gang that they think that they've pissed off, when in actual fact it's just a bunch of old farts that drive around on Harleys. But yeah, I'm Me is a motivational, feel good, fuck yeah, I rule anthem. I love this song. This song to me gets me out of bed in the morning. The Power and the Glory is pretty much speed metal when it kicks in. We're gonna make it. Another hell yeah, we rule moment. I've had enough. That chorus gets stuck in my head super easy. Like, ooh, I've had enough. I'll Take You Alive is a fun song. You're Not Alone, Suzette's song, is a ballad. And finally, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, one of the greatest 80s metal tracks ever, in my opinion. I love that song. I think it's just such an unrelenting killer.
It's a fun
break
song.
the speed limit track. Yeah. But with that is my number one.
Cool. I decided to be a basic bitch and put
Normie
Stay Hungry from 1984 is my number one. Their third album. But honestly, like a lot of when you talked about this album, a lot of the reasons that you said were why I like this one so much, because of the fact that you do get the best of both worlds with them.
Definitely.
And it's the most varied of any of their albums, but also it seems the most adventurous with the different kind of things they were doing, because they had such, if I don't know, in the songwriting process how everything happened, but if you have songs as strong, if you have a song as strong as We're Not Gonna Take It, they literally could have just phoned in the rest of the album and it probably still would have been a hit. But the fact that there's all these different strong songs that don't sound like that, and you get that, two-parter long song, which is a little bit different. And I just think that it's a classic of the era, but in this particular case, as we were talking about before, I was talking about this album along with Metal Health by Quiet Riot. Metal Health to me has a lot of filler. Stay Hungry to me doesn't really have any filler on it. Like it may lose a little bit of its steam the second half of the album, but overall, it to me seems like the ultimate statement of Twisted Sister, because it does have all of those things: the catchiness of some songs, the metalness of other songs, and it's well produced, well performed. Still a little bit stiff here and there, but it's got memorable and catchy songs, and on top of that, I said it before, we're not going to take it as one of the defining songs of the 80s. Like, and I don't just mean rock. I mean, if you were going to make a top 20 songs of the 80s, we're not going to take it. Has to go on that list because it's just it's such a it's kind of like, you know, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, what was, could you give me a good example of the 80s synth pop that was really popular in the 80s? And I'd be like, well, Aha, Take on Me is, I think, is the most, that is like, that nails it. Where I think on the rock side of things, this nails 80s rock, you know, big hair rock or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's something to be said for that. As much as I don't really dig Twisted Sister, a lot of what they did, if you're a band that at least produces a song like that is fucking timeless, and I also love, then you know, whatever, you've done enough. That's good enough for me. But yeah, I really enjoy this album, and I think it was one of those cases where it deserved the success, and it got success, and unfortunately for them, it fell off real quick, which is it's always been interesting to me, because, and I think it's because other bands came along that unfortunately were doing things better. Because I would rather listen. Well, Rat was already doing it around this time, but I'd rather listen to Rat or Cinderella or I don't know. I mean Motley Crue too. Although, like, you know, around this time, I agree, Theater of Pain is one of the worst Motley Crue albums. So, but they would recover with Girls, 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 which to me is also still only a half really good album. And so, which we did Motley Crue already. How long? We've been doing this almost 2 years. Or has it been 2 years?
I think it's been two. It's, if it's not been 2 years, it's coming up on 2 years, because we started in,
I think it was June
2020.
So yeah, almost 2 years of us doing these, and Motley Crue was really early on, back when you didn't have the luxury of looking at our lovely faces. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm not forgetting the podcast listeners, and this podcast will keep going for those of you who depend on it to be here for your enjoyment.
Back when I was sat cross-legged on my bed with zero lumbar support and a lapel mic with a laptop. Yeah. And
look
now
at us
I have
now.
a whole ass studio. Yeah.
Now we're basically,
we made it.
We're professional.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't really know what else to add about Stay Hungry. It's just it's a fun album of the time. And when it came through in the chronologicalness of the albums of the Twisted Sisters, it came on, and like from song one, Stay Hungry comes on, and I'm just like, this is like way better than everything else that they did. And just the quality of it all. And it's one of those cases where I do the most popular album to me is the best one. And so yeah, that's all I have to say about that. That brings us to the end of Twisted Sister, and for the first time in a few weeks, 3, 2, 1, yeah,
we did it.
Yeah, it feels good.
It does. We're back.
And so yeah, I apologize if I offended any sick motherfuckers of, what are they called? Sick motherfucking fans, something like that.
Yeah, sick motherfuckers.
The Twisted Sister fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, or if D. Snyder's listening, you know, sorry,
you're a cool guy.
You seem great, by the way. I would like to, I'd have a beer with D. Snyder. Do you like D. Snyder?
I feel like you're gonna do a deep
Am I wrong in thinking that, like, did he ever put together a product where it was like peanuts and they were called D's nuts?
I think I can't remember if it's a meme or not. Like, D. Snyder, D's nuts.
Because I would absolutely buy those.
I think I've definitely seen. I don't know if this is true or not. Nah, it's a meme, but it is funny. It's It's just a pack of like mixed nuts, and it's got the Twisted Sister logo on it and D, and it says D's nuts.
I would love that. I would just have them all the time with me with the label turned around, and then somebody can be like, what are you eating? I'll be like, these nuts, got him. That's the best way to wrap this up, I think.
Yeah.
A D's nuts joke.
D's nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick while it's on my mind. What
yes.
the fuck is Snoop up to? Taking Doggy Style and The Chronic off of streaming services for NFT purposes. He's gonna turn it into an NFT or something.
I'm ready for that entire thing to collapse, so we can just go back to normal, because it's kind of annoying, but I'm not going to say anything else about it. It is what it is. It's a fad, and people are, so, some people are enjoying it, some people are even benefiting from it. So whatever, it's to each their own. If you're in the NFT game and it's working for you, kudos. But yeah, I feel like that was. I was like, I'm on that note. I don't even know where to. What are we even doing next week? I think next week we're tackling another year, aren't we?
You're an NFT. That'd be funny. We're doing 1985 next week. We're gonna camp out in the 80s zone a little bit.
Just so everybody knows, next, yeah. For those of you who are peanut butter platypi, my man, isn't that correct? Isn't it platypus plural platypi?
I feel like we've looked this up before, and we were shocked to find it. Is it platypi or platypuses? Platypuses, which is the correct plural form, not platypi, are among the few venomous mammals.
They're venomous mammals?
It says venomous mammal.
I like it even more.
Platypuses are small egg-laying mammals with webbed feet, duck-like balls. What is it? Duck-like balls, duck-like bills, and tails, like beavers that live in Australia and Tasmania. Oh well, they're Australian. Everything fucked up lives in Australia, dude.
I don't share his views. I don't know really anything about Australia. There's some nice people there and some good bands there.
Yeah, there are some lovely people in Australia, but everything
I much enjoy your Crocodile Dundee movies.
Oh man.
Anyway, so
I had to save my girlfriend from a spider this like weekend, and it paled in comparison to the shit that lives in Australia. I don't know how they do it. Like,
I heard that.
Yeah.
Plus, it's got to be really bizarre to live in a part of the world where at Christmas time it's summertime.
Yeah,
that is.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Anyway, we've never even talked about an Australian band that I can. We got to do AC/DC, I guess, at some point.
And Silverchair.
Or Silverchair. Anyway, yes, or Midnight Oil, who knows? Yes, so for those of you who are the peanut butter platypuses, you have a little bit of insight into what's happening next week. That will be our top 10 albums of 1985. I've already started my list. I'm trying to whittle it down to 10. It's actually pretty rough. There's a lot of good shit that came out in 1985. But as usual, I'll be the guy that leaves off albums that some people will be like, what? How could you talk about 1985 without this album? Well, because it's not that great. Anyway, but we'll get to that. Me pissing off more people next week when we come back for the next episode of Cranked and Ranked. So thank you very, very much, everyone. Thank you for your patience and us coming back. And thank you for continuing to listen. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. Go buy some merch, please. If you're watching this on YouTube, you should be able to scroll down and there should be merch. Go buy some for Eddie's birthday. Just,
there's cool shit down there.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all we got for this episode of Cranked and Ranked. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to my man, Edward J. Sparxx, to take us out.
And a later dude. Later dude. Later dude. Later dude. Later dude. Help me. Help Steve.
And a
Help.
twisted new year.
There it is.
All right. Good night. Good night. Goodbye. Good day. Bye.